You ever seen the California Love music video?
Yep.
My ass backwards experience with Mad Max. Here we go. I watched the California Love music video, and I'm thinking, this is weird. This isn't like a gangster rap aesthetic. Turns out, it's an homage to Mad Max. That's my introduction to Mad Max as a child. That's where I had that basic idea of what Mad Max was from the California Love music video. So when we watched the original Mad Max, that's why I was so weirded out and like, what the hell's this? This isn't desert and post-apocalyptic stuff. This doesn't look anything like Tupac or Dr. Dre. What the hell?
Gotcha.
After watching Thunderdome, it all makes sense. I was like, oh, this is more connected to Thunderdome because they actually have the Thunderdome set in there. It's a desert wasteland. Funny enough, Jada Pinkett Smith, it was her idea to do a Mad Max homage for that music video. And then she was supposed to direct it, but then she didn't. And then Hype Williams directed it, and that's why it's so awesome. Why did they want to do a Mad Max homage? Apparently, it was Jada Pinkett Smith.
Keep my wife's name out your f***ing mouth! California!
Wow! What is poppin' kernels? We're back. It's a new week. It's a new Wednesday. And we have a brand new episode of Just Play It for you. First off, follow us on Instagram and YouTube at Just Play It Podcast, on Twitter at Just Play It Pod. I am your host, the Colonel Pop himself, James Jimmy Crack Corn Done. No, it sounds too much like James Corden, and
yeah, you don't.
I know how I feel about that guy.
I don't like him.
Okay,
we've now started a beef with a late night host, so here we are.
We have a list of enemies, a list of friends of the show, and just some wild cards. Like Randy Quaid.
There's a lot of them. And just real quick, I am Nick. I am your other host, and I am the Chief Corn Dog here on the pod. Welcome in, folks.
Chief Corn, Colonel Corn. It's popcorn. It's cone. We got the juice, and we are loose, and we are ready to rip, roar, and have a hootin', tootin', bootin', scootin' good time with this week's episode. This is our franchise of the year. This is the year of Mad Max 2023. We kind of started this whole overarching theme of the calendar year with Mad Max, with the original Mad Max being our very first episode. So we are back. It is third entry time. Nick, how you feel about this?
I feel good. I mean, it's an iconic franchise. It's a beloved movie franchise. It's a franchise that, in our opinion, we've talked about the first two, installments of this series really shaping a lot of cinema through the 80s and even the 90s. So I love this. I love doing this. I love going through a franchise and seeing how these movies evolve.
Evolve is a good word because they do seem not drastically different. The first one definitely is drastically different from the rest of them, but they do kind of have their own identities, despite all starring a character named Max and all being directed by George Miller.
And that Max being pretty mad the whole time.
That's because things aren't really going his way.
They never do. So this week, that's right, this is our third installment of the Mad Max franchise. We are reviewing 1985's Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. And I'll just build on what you said real quick before we start to dive into some of these movie facts. Is they do evolve. I would garner to say this one may be the most different out of all the three of them, which isn't a bad thing in any way, shape, or form. It just is how the movie ended up being, and I'm excited to talk about it.
Well, this movie is directed by George Miller. There was another name, a different George.
George Ogilvy. I was doing a little research. They had worked together on some TV shows, I believe, in Australia. Because you got to remember, these are all Australian folks, Australian actors. We like to say, oh, we recognize this person, this person. A lot of the side characters here, similar to last week's Kroll is, they had a lot of British actors, so we don't see them around in our TV or cinema a lot. But yeah, I think him and George Ogilvy had been friends and had worked on previous projects together.
Lovely. Well, joining this movie this week is Mel Gibson, Tina Turner, and Bruce Spence actually makes a return.
Yeah, the Tina Turner. Yeah, you hear Tina Turner, you're like, it's not that Tina. It is that Tina Turner.
She was the mayor in Last Action Hero.
So there's that.
Yeah, I feel like this is kind of her standout performance as far as acting goes.
I would agree with that.
I was trying to figure out how or why she was cast in this movie, and I'm just speculating here. I think the first movie was just a production of the Kennedy Miller production company, which is Byron Kennedy and George Miller. They essentially met at a university, made some short films together, and had a major success with the original Mad Max. So that kind of gave them contacts in Hollywood with the Road Warrior and this movie. So I feel like Mad Max was probably an independent movie. Road Warrior definitely seemed like they upped the ante with the studio budget and overall look and production quality. And I can say the same for this. So I'm wondering if Warner Brothers got a little bit more involved and wanted to insert a household name from the United States, because that's the first time that they've done that, besides having the actor of Mel Gibson be in the movie.
Yeah, I gotta be honest, I'm not sure. So,
And to have like a music song tie-in, try and expand the franchise to music, I feel like that was just a tactic of studios back in the day.
it might be what's interesting about Tina Turner and her career is, I mean, she got kicked off in the 60s with Ike and Tina Turner, and she had a few hits in the 70s, but the rest of her revival didn't really come till like the mid to late 80s. That's when a lot of her chart toppers were. In 85, the same movie. This movie was released in 86 and 87. So it wasn't like she was on top of the world when this movie came out. She was definitely known as an artist, but it wasn't like, I mean, I'm trying to think of a comparison. Like if you saw Drake show up in a movie today, you'd be like, "Oh, that's just name recognition." Not that Tina Turner wasn't popular, but her late 80s career had not kicked off yet when this movie came out. So I do wonder if she was trying her hand at acting, and again, an agent knows an agent knows an agent, and get her the part. I will say it didn't seem like she was cast and did a poor job. I thought she did just perfectly fine in her role.
Well, let's look at the budget and the box office.
Let's do it. So similar to our previous Mad Max installments, a fairly low budget, all things considered, especially compared to a lot of the movies we review on this podcast. We see much larger budgets. $10 million on this one. And box office, we had 36 million pulled in. So Mad Max 1, we had a $300,000 budget, and we pulled in 8 million. And then for Road Warrior, we had a $3 million budget, pulled in 23.6 million. And now we've tripled that. I think they were probably hoping for triple the returns. Didn't get it quite. I think this is percentage-wise the lowest return of the original three.
Well, they got
Mad
it.
Maxes.
They tripled the... Oh, no, I guess if you account for the, like, not the budget, like if it hit 40 million, they triple the budget, but they don't triple
the gross.
Return. Yeah. Okay.
Right. Yeah. I think they were probably hoping for like a return of 60 to 70 million. And I mean, making 36 million on 10 million, you're not mad about it, but.
Well, let's read this log line here. After being exiled from the most advanced town in post-apocalyptic Australia, a drifter travels with a group of abandoned children to rebel against the town's queen.
Let's find out why that is, James. What do you think it's time for?
Plot talk.
Plot talk.
Okay, so we actually open up on something I call reverse credits. I hate these. When they say all the actors and who they play, it's like I don't know who that is yet. Now I know there's a pig killer in this movie. Oh, there's someone named the Collector. Someone's named Iron Dick. It's like wait till the movie presents itself, and then maybe I'll stick around and see who played these guys based on if I liked it or not. That especially goes for the rest of the credits.
Just give me the top billed cast. Because then I'm watching it and I'm like, is this guy quote unquote the Collector? Because they never say his name. They never say I'm the Collector. I'm just like,
No.
is that the Collector or is that
names? Yeah, names in these movies are so weird. They're either underused or they just don't have real names. We touched upon this in Road Warrior. There was like Warrior Woman. There was the Golden Youth.
Pilot.
Humongous. Yeah, Gyro, the Gyro Captain. Sorry, I just had to say that. Hate reverse credits. It's a thing of the past. You do not see that a whole lot these days.
I agree.
But we do open up on a aerial shot of the desert. And this is looking mighty Sahara-esque. But
Yes.
we're still in Australia.
Mm-hmm.
This is where the whole Mad Max franchise takes place. This aerial shot is pretty cool. It does fly all the way up to this caravan-looking figure. And as we get closer, we see it is a bunch of camels pulling like a carriage or a vehicle or something.
Like a disabled vehicle of some... Yeah.
And so this aerial shot, I'm thinking, Gyro Captain, is he back? And it's not the gyrocopter. It is some sort of super small, chody looking airplane.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little stubby guy. And lo and behold, Bruce Spence he's on the joysticks.
I hate this.
Okay.
because he's not... I don't know if he's the same character as from Road Warrior.
Go ahead, get a couple vents out, and then we'll move on.
So I see Bruce Spence, and I see this kid with him, and I'm like, this is the cap, this is his friend, and this is the wild child from Road Warrior, obviously. Like it has to be that you can't leave me off Road Warrior, and then the first thing I see in Thunderdome is the same actor as a pilot, and then this kid next to him. Like I think I'm thinking they're all just one big caravan together. It's one on the ground, one in the sky. I don't know why you'd use the same. I understand using the same actor for some fan service. When you use the same actor and they're so similar to the last character, but they're not the same character, I don't get that.
I had similar feelings. I think you need to have them play a completely different role.
Just a quick cameo.
Yeah, I was a little confused, but actually, no, not yet. I wasn't confused yet because the Gyro, Jedediah is his name in this movie.
We know that because of the opening credits.
So Jedediah flies a plane over. He does have a kid, and he tucks and rolls, jumps out of the plane, and hijacks, does a Grand Theft Camel of this carriage. We're thinking classic Gyro Captain. He is up to thieving. He left the Great Northern Tribe that he was apparently leading and is back on his bullshit, stealing from passersby and poor people on the road, or in this case, out in the middle of the desert. And we find out that this is actually Max. Max got his shit stolen from what we think is his old friend, and what we think his old friend didn't recognize him because he was all robed up. So at this point in the game, I wasn't confused, but we just both know because we've seen the whole movie now that they don't recognize each other later.
This is not the same character.
Hey, Gyro. Hey, remember partners? We were partners.
I saved your life. You saved my life.
Remember we blew up that fucking compound and, and Humongous died and we ran over Wes and then Papa Doc had that big spiky trident thrown in the back. Remember how funny that was? No, nothing.
Spoiler alert towards the end of the movie where he's like, oh, you have a plane. Like they clearly is like they've never talked to each other.
Well, hold on. We got to get there. Let's keep this plot talk going.
We're gonna get there. All right, keep it rolling.
Max, he makes his way to a trading post called Bartertown. This is a settlement in the middle of the desert.
A little on the nose, but I like it.
Right. You have to come in and you need something to trade to enter this town.
The Bartertown.
He has nothing. He literally got all of his shit stolen from the Gyro Captain, aka Jedediah, who may or may not be the same person. We don't know. So he's initially refused entry because he has nothing to trade. And essentially he says, I have a certain set of skills that I could trade.
I have a very particular set of skills. Skills I have acquired over a very long career.
And he is brought to the founder and ruler, the queen herself, the aforementioned Tina Turner, Auntie Entity.
Yep. Just through the movie goes by Auntie. So Auntie says basically like, the deal is I'll resupply you if you complete a task for me. And the guy who I assume is a collector basically it says, you got it's 24 hours of your life for a huge reward. And he's like, yeah, of course. Then he has this funny moment where they're like turning your weapons to get into Bartertown. And it's like there's 20 seconds of him like unloading all of his weapons off of his persons.
There's about 13 weapons on him.
Knives, guns, pulls a crossbow out of God knows where. You're like, okay.
Probably got that from Wes in Road Warrior.
Here's where we find out a lot about Bartertown, where Auntie explains to him that they have this like renewable source of energy. And he's like, is it gasoline? They're like, no, it's literally pig shit. Like the methane from the pig shit runs everything there. So they're pretty advanced. They have this whole system going. And the whole refinery is run by this dwarf little person. I don't say little person.
It's run by two characters that
yes.
are essentially one entity. This entity, this duo, is called Master Blaster. And Master is the person of short stature.
There you go.
Played by Angelo Rosito. And dude, this guy is 77 years old in this movie.
Oh, yeah. I could tell he was old.
I mean, I thought he was like 50, 60. And I looked him up, and his IMDb profile picture is like a super silent film picture. He plays Master, and there is a character named Blaster who plays the Muscle. So this guy is actually a gentleman named Paul Larson, who I read somewhere that he was just like a plumber, and he was just an absolute unit. And George Miller's like, yep, I want that guy.
Boom.
And he was just like 6'5", 200 something pounds. Oh, sorry. Actually, he's 6'8". So he's a big dude.
He's a unit.
Yes, but he has a mask on. Kind of like Lord Humongous vibes here. Blaster is the muscle and Master is the mouth.
Yeah.
So Master kind of rides on Blaster's shoulders.
Literally, yeah.
You see that all the time at like cartoons, you know.
Yeah, it's a common like relationship. There's the brain and the brawn. And Auntie's problem is that Master Blaster, as they're known, has begun to challenge Auntie for control of Bartertown, because Master, he pretty much runs the whole methane operation. He knows the pigs, he knows the whole operation, so he controls the energy.
So he can hold Bartertown by the barter balls if he wants to. He kind of power trips. He flexes his pig shit power in the beginning. He's like, hey, you think you run Bartertown, but this energy runs Bartertown, lady.
And he gets her, he has this whole power trip about, tell me who runs Bartertown. And she has to respond, Master Blaster does. So he has this whole, they have this really adversarial relationship about who controls the power in Bartertown. And Auntie basically wants to kill Blaster, Master's muscle, so that
I think she wants to kill Master Blaster. Both of those guys.
She wants to, she needs Master because she needs Master. So she needs to be able to control him. But to do that, you got to get rid of the muscle. You got to get rid of Blaster. And this is where Max comes in.
So I'm getting echoes from Road Warrior.
Yes.
Well, he attempts to get his shit stolen once again. In this movie, he gets his car actually stolen. In Road Warrior, Gyro Captain tries to steal Max's car and ends up leading him to a compound. And he just kind of falls into the situation of being between a rock and a hard place. Of he needs something, the village people need something, so he's going to do a job in return. So very similar story beats playing out here,
and very much who controls the energy, it holds the power in this post-apocalyptic world.
So gasoline was in Road Warrior. They had an oil refinery. This one is just a functioning town with energy, and it's powered by pig poop. Tina Turner is also in this like weird Overwatch tower, and there's a saxophone guy playing. She says Tauntaun, play something tragic, but it all sounds sexy to me.
It's brass, man. It's brass instruments. It's just a good time. So Max makes his way down to what's called Underworld, and this is where all the people are really slaving away and working. So these are not, these aren't
It's
voluntary
like
workers
horrible working
necessarily.
conditions, I'll say. OSHA would not be about this
No,
crap, literally.
it's almost a prison sentence because Max ends up meeting a guy named Pig Killer, who's convicted for life, and he's sentenced to work there because he slaughtered a pig to feed his family. But we know pig shit is so valuable, so like pigs are like gold. You kill a pig, you're sentenced to life working in this underground energy factory, for lack of a better term. Master Blaster, we find out, has acquired the vehicle that belonged to Max. So our pilot had pawned it off to Bartertown, right? It's Bartertown. He bartered it. It's a pretty simple A to B line you can draw.
I get it.
And if we remember from Road Warrior, Max always booby traps his cars. So you can't just sit there and steal his car. I mean, there's explosives all over that bitch.
It's rigged.
They find it, and like you said, James, similar story beats. They're going to try and force Max to disable his car the same way the gyro pilot did. It was like, it's booby trapped. Like, you're going to have to do this.
Booby trapped.
Booby trap.
Max doesn't necessarily have an ace up his sleeve like he did in Road Warrior.
There's no hidden machete.
But he does end up setting off an alarm, and he discovers that Blaster is hypersensitive to these high-pitched noises. And that we're like, okay.
Blaster is conveniently doesn't like loud noises.
Now, this Master Blaster is a problem. Like we've learned that off the bat. This Master is a manipulative son of a bitch, and Blaster is a strong son of a bitch. And we're like, all right, this right here is our main antagonist for show.
Two sons of bitches make a big old some bitch.
So we go back to the surface, and what ends up happening is there's a disagreement between Max and
Max
Master
goes up
Blaster.
after doing recon of his enemies, his target's weak spot. He goes back up to Queen Tina, Auntie Entity, and says, all right, I know how to beat this guy. I know how to kick his ass. Auntie Entity says, okay, well, you can do that in Thunderdome. So we get our title drop here. And Thunderdome essentially is a fighting cage where two people enter and one person leaves. And it's by law. It's very systematic. It's in their policy. So and I don't know how much of a disagreement it needs to be. Doesn't need to be a physical altercation. Doesn't need to be a verbal debate. I don't know.
Could just be a simple challenge. I challenge you to Thunderdome.
Yeah. So they say, hey, you want to be legit and kill Master Blaster in a fair fight? It has to be via a duel, and you must challenge him. But he doesn't outwardly challenge him. It does seem a little bit scripted, a little bit of backdoor politics here, because Auntie says you need to pick a fight with him, and then we'll chime in and say, oh, it seems like a duel is in order. So that's exactly what happens. He catches Master Blaster in these streets of Bartertown and says, hey, homie, like, you're repping the wrong set. I'm about to stomp your ass.
You better square up.
So they end up in Thunderdome, which is a cage fight. And the rules are simple. Two people enter, one person leaves, and there are weapons strewn about. But there's a little bit of a catch here. They are strapped to these like bungee jump things that they can spring up in the air.
It's like at an amusement park, those like trampolines where you're tied to two bungee ropes at the sides of your hips. So you don't have free movement. You're very springy and bouncy. And there's the Thunderdome it's a dome. It's a whole half circle steel cage. And there's weapons strewn about, but you have to like
they're
bungee
like
yourselves around.
They're up on the
ceiling.
cage ceiling. They're not on the ground. So you have to bungee jump up there. And like you were saying, you don't have free movement. I remember going to, I think like, what was that thing we went to on a field trip? We went to NASA or something.
Yeah.
And I think I was one of those kids in the moon chair, the thing that you can like bounce up. It was like, felt like low gravity.
Yeah.
So that was free moving because I think it was a moving rig up top. But these guys just have a specific pinpoint to the ceiling. So they just come back to wherever they're going, bouncing around. So this, I gotta say, this fight could have been so sick. They could have been so stylized and made some really sick action stunts to it. But honestly, it just looks like a couple stunt guys goofing around on bungee cables. Like it's a lot of awkward wide shots. There's no choreography. It's just they're just bouncing around going to town.
They did have one sick move where when Max is getting rushed, he does this like kind of like step back and then like propels himself, bungees forward and does a front flip and lands. And you could tell that the whole crew, like the film crew, was really excited about this because then they did it like 4 times in a row.
Well, I was
like,
going to say,
I need another move.
Blaster gets fooled by that move 5 times. Correction. It happens 5 times. He gets fooled by it 4 times because he already saw it once, and Max continues to jump over. And I'm thinking, Blaster, dude, get your head out of that bucket. He's going to do it again.
Yeah, he's a big time bucket head.
You need to meet him up top and posterize this fool, okay?
And the whole time we have the crowd just surrounding it chanting, 2 men enter, 1 man leaves. So we know the rules of the game because it's been chanted at us about 50 times at this point.
We'll see how many chants are in this movie.
Quite a few chants. Just
I gotta say,
alert.
So they got this Dracula looking guy as the Michael Buffer character of the situation. I don't know what his deal is, but it's a Mad Max movie. So I'm not lost at this point. I just know there's an eclectic gang of characters strewn about, and you don't really understand their backstory or the aesthetic, but you just accept it.
Yeah, best not to ask questions.
So, and during this, while he's jumping over him 5 times, Blaster has this like hockey stick sword that he's just charging. It's like a joust, and he's just getting fooled left and right as Max just continues to jump over this fool. It was silly. And that's where I was like, you could have did something sick, but it just looks really goofy.
In the meantime, though, Max does have this high-pitched whistle. And from earlier, we know that Blaster's weakness is this high-pitched noise. He keeps trying to get to this whistle, and he just can't get the whistle.
Is bringing it out at the worst times. You know when you're bringing it out? Off the jump.
Yeah.
He picks the time when he's getting stomped on to like bring it out, and he's getting stomped on like boom, and then Blaster jumps up, boom, jumps up, boom. So that's the rhythm. So he thinks that's enough time to reach into his pants, pull out the whistle, and then put it in his mouth. And then we get the old like, oh, I'm losing it. And I'm just like, you're picking the worst times to whip this thing out.
But eventually he does get to it. He blows his whistle.
Blow the whistle.
The whistle's got woo!
Blaster's, covering his ear holes of his giant bucket helmet.
It's that woo woo!
Probably sounds worse in the bucket.
Oh, it has to be reverberating terribly. Max picks up this gigantic hammer, almost like one of those joke hammers that you swing at a carnival.
A huge mallet.
Like those like oversized sledgehammers. Yeah. And knocks Blaster's helmet off, knocks him to the ground.
Decapitated this fool, but it was just the helmet.
Just knocks the helmet off. Blaster's on the ground. Max goes to like lift the hammer to smash his head, and we realize he's a special needs guy.
Blaster is played by 2 different actors. Paul Larson is the body double, and this actor named Stephen Hayes, who has Down syndrome, plays the face. So they have 2 actors playing this one character. Now, this was odd to me. Yeah, the editing and the directing of this scene was a little bit weird to me. I think it would have been better if we just kind of hung on Max's reaction to seeing who this person is underneath the mask. Kind of keep that a mystery and reveal it later. But instead it's just, I don't know. It didn't really hit hard for me. But we learned that Max, he has a line, and he's like, hey, I'm not about to murk this guy with Down syndrome.
You're like, Max is a savage, but he's not a jackass, not an asshole.
Master comes out and wants to protect his body. He wants to protect his muscle, not for his use, but because he loves him.
He's like, he's just a kid. Like he has the mind of a kid. Like you can't hurt him. And Max looks up at Auntie, and he's like, this wasn't part of the deal. And this is where Master's like, a deal? Like what deal? Like what are you talking about?
What?
So they basically say, hey, like the people start chanting, 2 men enter, 1 man leaves. They're like, we need a death. And so Auntie just busts out I think it was the Collector, somebody.
Yeah, Iron Bar just whips out the crossbow and shoots Blaster and then kills him.
Shoots him in the chest twice, just doom, doom.
Okay, I want you to explain what happens next, and then I'll call out the hypocrisy that I'm seeing here.
And the people are like, well, he didn't kill the guy. Like the rules of Thunderdome have not been fulfilled. They're like the crowd is upset. So Auntie jumps down and says, like, I know that like the rules are broken, but you know the punishment for breaking a deal. And then we get our next chant.
Bust the deal, face the wheel.
Bust the deal and face the wheel.
Bust the deal, face the wheel.
Bust the deal, face the wheel. Bust the deal, face the wheel.
And so I'm like, what?
Here's where I had a problem. These guys were all high and mighty of the law of Thunderdome and say, hey, 2 men enter, 1 man leaves, blah, blah, blah. And then they're the ones that interfere. They don't even give Max proper warning or adequate time to finish the job if he wanted to. In the moment, he's like, I don't want to kill this guy. But they could have let him wait it out. But no, they just decide to insert themselves into the situation, kill this guy, have the audacity to jump into the cage and say, this man broke the law. It's like, no, you bitch, you broke the law.
He busted the deal, and now he must face the wheel.
It's rigged. Bartertown is a rigged ass system, and I don't like it.
Yeah, I agree. This is a very corrupt town. They have to spin this giant wheel. Our Michael Buffer character is like, buzz the deal, face the wheel.
He's like, ooh, don't bring any garlic towards me.
It's this like big, like, ooh, wooden stakes.
Let's get ready to wooden stake me.
So this is big Wheel of Fortune ass wheel, and they spin it, and there's all these punishments.
Who made that?
There's one sliver of the wheel that's like acquittal, and there's one sliver where it's like Auntie's choice, and there's one, but he lands on gulag.
Oops. Wah, wah.
And so I was surprised because James, what do you think of when you hear gulag?
I don't play Call of Duty, but that's what I think of. But I think of jail.
It's a Russian prison camp. That was the gulag, specifically the Soviet Union. Like that, it's a Soviet word for a prison camp. But their idea of a gulag is to slap a mask on Max, strap him to a horse, slap the horse on the ass, and let the horse run as far as it can into the desert. Like, that's exile. That's not a gulag.
So it's not even a mask. It's like a huge paper mache, almost mascot, oversized head mask.
Yeah, it's like a mascot mask.
It was weird.
Yeah, they're like, all right, send him off into the desert. And so they send him off into the desert, and the horse just runs as far as possible. And eventually the horse runs out of steam. Now, when Max wakes up or gets himself out of this mask and his restraints, the horse is dead in the sand. Out of nowhere, the horse gets enveloped by quicksand. James, where's our quicksand counter at now on the podcast?
3, baby, back-to-back weeks with quicksand. Let's go.
3 quicksands.
What did I say last week? That it wasn't gonna show up past the year 2000. That might be a little bit ambitious, but let's look at the tally here. Beyond Thunderdome, 1985. Kroll, 1983. Cutthroat Island, 1995. Quicksand was a 20th century invention in movies, and we are here for it, apparently.
I'm still waiting for that post 2000 quicksand, and I will be on my high horse on that day because I think they kept it going.
Yeah, I'm not gonna rule it out, but I'm just saying
it's not as prevalent. It's similar like the Bermuda Triangle, right? The Bermuda Triangle was a thing growing up. Like in the 90s, everybody was like, if you even look at the Bermuda Triangle, like there's a chance you die. Your plane goes down. Now that I'm older, I haven't heard about the Bermuda Triangle in 15 years.
I'll say this. I'll say Quicksand probably will have more cinematic appearances in the 70s, 80s, and 90s than all of the 21st century combined. So I'm giving it the full 100 years. So with this horse sinking, getting swallowed up in the quicksand, it got me thinking. I was like, were animals harmed in the making of this movie? Because it's an Australian movie. There's no American Humane Society. And they do have that little badge at the credits. It's like, no animals were harmed in the making of this movie. I was looking at those pig conditions, and they had just Master getting lowered into the pig pen. And I was like, does it feel weird watching this? The horse, I guess there's trained horses and they can look like they're hella tired and not actually exhausted, but this horse looked gassed, dude. And there's a monkey in this one. Monkey's getting slapped around.
the reason that Max is able to continue on after the horse was Pig Killer sends this monkey out.
Oh yeah, that's what I was thinking. Oh yeah. So
yeah, with a canteen.
Yeah, in the movie, this monkey traverses this desert and I don't think he drinks the water. He's bringing it to Max.
Yeah. This monkey's just out and about.
Monkey is like 30 times smaller than a human, and Max is on a horse. He's not doing any work. So the horse dies from heat exhaustion and then gets swallowed up into quicksand. Meanwhile, this monkey is making up the same ground that a horse does in the middle of the desert, blazing heat. That post-apocalyptic sunburn, are you kidding me?
Unaffected monkey.
This monkey's built different, and I don't know what to say.
I wish I knew.
Every movie gets one.
Might not need a monkey counter, too, because we've had a few monkey moments on this podcast.
One more thing about the quicksand. That was the quickest quicksand I've ever seen.
It wasn't even wet. That's the problem. That's the issue I had with it. It was just dry quicksand. It's the scariest kind of quicksand.
There's your nitpick. It was a raw dog, dry as bone quicksand.
Not even like if you get lubed up into some quicksand, maybe.
Yeah, quicksand's usually slow moving, sloppy, sinking. There's a little bit of moisture in there. This was
at
just
least you drown. This one you just like get buried under the sand and suffocate down. That's the nightmare.
This could have been like those like plastic tube slides, like at the McDonald's Play Palace, Chuck E. Cheese. Those like plastic tubes. I feel like there's maybe one of those underneath some sand, and then they just like open the hatch, and then that was the effect.
It was like an hourglass. It was like you were at the top of an hourglass, and it was just the sand started going down.
Nightmares.
It was tough.
Anyway,
so Max is walking through the desert, and he ends up passing out, and he gets found by this sand person. That's the best I can come up with. Like it looked like a sand person from Star Wars. Looked like a Tusken Raider, like from the silhouette. But we zoom in, and it's this person we find out later is named Savannah, played by Hannah Bidet, I believe it is.
Hannah Savannah, you say?
And hauls him back to her home, which is this oasis in the desert, river, greenery, and it's populated by a primitive tribe of children and teenagers. So we get the Lost Boys here.
Yeah, and my exact thought.
We find out these chillins are descendants from.
No, you're okay. You're okay saying children's because they do add on the letter S to the ends of their words a lot. They say we sees this, we knows this.
I was just trying to be like Chef in South Park. Hello, children's.
Isaac, hey, shout out,
friend of the pod. So they're descendants from survivors of a plane crash in this desert. We're led to assume that the crash was part of the overall start of the apocalypse. Because if it was before that, I'd assume people would be looking for the survivors of this plane. So they have this whole lore and story that in this culture they've created about this pilot named Captain Walker, who was the pilot of the plane. And one day he'll eventually come back to them and then fly them back home to this fabled land called Tomorrowland. And they find Max, and they believe that Max is this famous Captain Walker, basically their savior figure.
Yeah, and Max is like, nope, not me, wrong guy. And they're like, is this a test? He's testing us. Haha. That's funny, Captain Walker. They do bring out one of those things. What's that like? The binoculars with the
like a viewfinder, I believe it's called.
Yeah, they bring out a viewfinder, and once again, these kids are chanting what's in it in order. They're like, Captain Walker, and then they click the next slide, and it's like Captain Walker's wife, and they click the next slide, and they're like River of Lights, like Tomorrowland. I'm like,
cities and
kids, you're in for a rude awakening of what reality is. You're stuck in this weird ass moist cavern in the middle of the dry ass desert. This is where the movie took a little bit of a turn for me, unexpected turn for me.
Me too. I was like, I wasn't expecting this one.
I was like, where's Thunderdome? Who are these kids?
See, now we're beyond Thunderdome.
We are hella beyond Thunderdome.
So Max denies that he's this Captain Walker character. And he's like, hey, there's no more, like, this civilization's dead. You guys don't know this, but this is the best. This little oasis thing you've built, this little society, stay here. Never leave. It's a bad place out there. This Savannah character is like, you're wrong. Like, we need to go journey to Sparta Town. We need to go do things. And at one point, the wind picks up and the sand blows away the wreckage of this plane that ended up crashing. And they're like, the wind's here. Like, Captain Walker can fly us away. And of course, Max is like, this is a broken down, like, this is a plane crash. I can't fly.
This is a plane literally halfway dug into the sand.
Yeah, there's no way that I can engine. Like, there's no, like, what do you?
You need a runway. Do you even know physics?
Do you know planes? And Max stops them by firing guns at them to scare them, and then eventually he punches out Savannah.
Oh my god, dude! He knocks out Savannah. Savannah, I was thinking I thought she was like an 18-year-old. I hope so now.
At best 18.
I hope so now. Otherwise, Mel Gibson punched a kid,
which might be in line for Mel Gibson as we know him now. But
yeah,
So
he went from Mad Max to Morals Max, back to Mad Max, to domestic violence Max.
He went from angry mad to insane mad. Like, he's just Mad Max. Like, he's like a mad scientist. Like, just he's insane.
Yeah, Savannah. Well, first off, she says, anyone who's got the juice, we're going. So this is our not only our third quicksand counters, our third juice reference.
Not just the word juice, but just the phrase "have the juice." Juice.
The meaning of juice. We saw it in Juice, obviously. And Map to Stars Eddie, he's like, Cuervo Jones got the juice.
Has the juice.
And then Savannah's like, from them streets too. She's like, anyone who's got that juice, come with me, because we're going to Tomorrowland.
Only people with the juice are allowed to go.
Yeah, and these kids were saying, hey, we need to wait for Captain Walker to fly us to Tomorrowland. And then as soon as they realize Max is not Captain Walker, Savannah's just like, all right, I'm walking.
Walking here. I'm walking.
You've been out there. You probably already tried walking. You know it's not going to work. So Max is mad, obviously, because that's who he is, and tries. I don't think he tries to shoot Savannah, but he shoots towards Savannah. And like you were saying, he puts his hand up like he's going to do some sort of kung fu move, but he just goes closed fist and just socks this girl.
Just a vicious right jab.
Just sucker punches Savannah.
Vicious jab.
Like, what the hell, Max?
The rest of the kids are like, all right, that's that.
I'm 11 years old. I don't want to get punched out by Mel Gibson.
Smart. But during the night, they do end up escaping.
Maybe he was angry about his haircut, because he just started out the movie
they do cut
with like Jesus hair, and then he ends up with his old Max cut. The Savannah just cuts it.
Yeah, to make him look like the Captain Walker character in their lore.
Oh, is that what they're doing?
Yeah, they were trying to make him look, because when you look at the Captain Walker in the viewfinder, he even like at one point they put
like the Doctor Strange white side,
gray. Yeah. And at first I looked, I was like, is Mel Gibson gray? But once he hits the water, it washes out, and I'm like, oh, they were trying to make him look like Captain
More
Walker.
Backdoor politics,
trying to gaslight the shit out of him. So they're like, oh, these kids won't survive, and Max agrees to bring them back. He's like, I will go get them. He ends up taking a few kids along, and I thought there was a really funny moment.
I didn't get this.
There were a couple kids.
I didn't get why he agreed to go. Why did he go? He's like, stay here. And then he's like shooting at this girl, punches her. He's like, I don't know you. I don't owe anything to you. And then they're like, you have to go save them. But I guess he just has a thing for kids.
Yeah, so I was going to say that. They never reference it, but we saw it in Road Warrior, because remember, his kid got ran down in the original Mad Max.
Yeah, he's a father figure. He's a father man.
Yeah, in the Road Warrior, he had what was the kid's credited name?
It was just Feral Kid.
Feral Kid. And he liked the Feral Kid, right? He gave him the music box.
They had an unspoken bond.
Yes. And so I think that was at play here, to the discredit of the director and the writers. Like, they never brought it up. It was just like, quote unquote, understood.
We'll blame that on other George
Ogilvy here. Yeah. No, it was really weird, because that's what I said. Because I wrote down this moment, because eventually another kid runs after them, like with a pretty young kid. And Max looks back and goes, he's going to have to hold his own.
Yep. This is where it clicked for me. Yeah, at the moment when he decides to go chase after Savannah and the crew, I was like, this doesn't make sense. He just literally said, stay here. He just punched her out. He shot at her. This makes no sense. And then when the young kid runs out and he says he's got to hold his own. And then, like you said, next shot, he's got the kid on his shoulders. I was like, he's a dad.
Yeah.
He's still a dad.
Yeah, he's protective of the kids, right? The innocence, he doesn't want other people to become...
I rescind my comments.
That. But no, I agree though, James, that those kids had some toys, right? There was like a Bugs Bunny toy, the viewfinder. If maybe he like held the toy and he had a flashback to his kid, it's just a quick 20-second flashback of, hey, I remember my family. I remember being a dad. They never crossed a sentimental line with him the whole movie, and then he just makes this decision, and you have to think back to, oh, the original Mad Max, where his kid got run down, and that's now shaped his entire persona.
And you're thinking, oh yeah, the feral kid. So that did click for me there.
Well, yeah, once the kid was on his shoulders, you're like, yeah, he's a big softie. They end up running into Savannah and the others who defected, but guess where they're at, James?
We won't count this as a quicksand encounter number 4 because it's the same movie. And I think literally the same quicksand pit. They do lose a kid. Quicksand 1, kid 0.
There's a kid lost, yes.
He's down there with the horse. Max does save Savannah and the other kids, and they make their way back to Bartertown.
There's only, they can't make their way back to the Oasis there. They're like, there's only one, which I was surprised because last time Max made it all the way there. But now they're like, our only options go to Bartertown. Now, I was trying to do the math. So would it be easier to wander back to the Oasis where the kids were, because that was something Max was able to walk to, or to walk all the way to Bartertown, which basically spanned the life cycle of a running horse?
Exactly. And they already have that. They have that Oasis to quicksand checkpoint under their belts. And then you add on top the horse distance. No.
It's like there's no way Bartertown's the closest destination at this point in the game from the quicksand.
The only thing I'll say to defend that is Max does say, I need all the water I can carry, which does echo Road Warrior when he says, I need all the gasoline I can carry to do this job. So maybe with more water, he can make it, but there are like 6 kids going with him.
We're just along for the ride. Yeah, we're just along for the ride here. So they end up sneaking their way back into Bartertown, into the underworld. They end up meeting up with Pig Killer, our old friend who sent the monkey. They free Master from the pig area, and Pig Killer, I think, is actually the one who ends up in a modified truck that's on some train tracks.
It's like a train truck. It's like, but there's also a portable house looking thing on it.
It was bizarre. And so they take off, and they end up destroying the refinery, most of Bartertown in the process.
Not as big of an explosion as the oil refinery compound in Road Warrior, but they do kind of fuck shit up and say, peace out, Bartertown. We got Master.
And now we have about 25 minutes left in the movie. 25 minutes of about 105-minute runtime.
I'm happy you brought this up. Say what you're going to say.
Oh, I say, finally, this is Mad Max. We get a vehicle chase scene. Because this
Hour
has been
23 minutes into a movie, we finally get into a vehicle combat scene.
Not even vehicle combat scene, into a vehicle.
Sorry. Hour 23 minutes in, we finally get into a vehicle that is internally combustion.
Yeah. We had the camels, but
the camels didn't count. Those were too green. 2 minutes later, hour 25 minutes. Now we get our first chase.
Yes. I'm glad we're on the same page here, because it wasn't. I was like, is this the same franchise? Because the last 2 movies was almost entirely based on the road, chases and cars and mobility and all of this. And we just hadn't seen it yet. So like, okay, finally we get the car scene. Auntie orders her forces to pursue Max and his crew because they want to get Master back. Basically what we've gotten in the final, the last 2 movies, we get this epic chase scene. People are jumping from car to car.
It's mirroring Road Warrior more than OG Mad Max. That was just such a small budget, and that's, in my opinion, the most different movie of the franchise. But yeah, very similar to Road Warrior Final Battle. It's a convoy combat scene with multiple cars and a big kind of quote unquote home base car.
I gotta say, I was a little disappointed in this because we had mentioned in Road Warrior how impressed we were that they upped the budget and just the angles and the shots that they had during the scene for the chases, right? The camera that was mounted to the side of the car, all these. I see you nodding your head, buddy. I listen to you, and I take your advice and I apply it to the next movie I'm watching.
We are on the same exact page here.
And I was just a little disappointed that it just seemed a lot more...
Same exact page. when I collect this down, I said I had this thought in my head when I wrote down hour 25 in. Here comes some vehicle combat scenes, and I thought this better be good because I was waiting all movie for it, and it's a little bit too copycat of Road Warrior. I didn't see anything necessarily new.
Honestly, a little worse.
There's even similar stunts, like some guy like smacks off a open air vehicle or a motorcycle and he does like this slow motion flip. And I'm like, I saw that in Road Warrior.
Mm-hmm.
We even get Wesed again. There's another Wes style jump scare where a guy jumps up and goes, "Wah!" I think it's Iron Balls or whatever his name is.
A guy gets stuck to the front of the moving truck.
That's Iron Balls.
Yeah.
So Iron Bar is essentially Wes in this battle. He's the like annoying one that keeps popping up. And all these movies, like, they love having the characters like they like fly off screen or they get smashed into a car off screen and you're like, okay, they're super dead.
Not dead.
And then they come around the corner and they're like, they just scream. They're like, yeah, with a goofy face. I'm like, what are you doing?
Now, tell me if I was seeing things. I didn't go back and rewatch this part, but was Max ended up in a car that had like Dalmatian fur on it?
No, it was a cow car. So
because I wrote down, is that like the Dumb and Dumber van, like exterior? Because it was
like a oversized convertible.
It was like white with black spots and it was furry. I was like, what is this?
Yeah, it was cow skin.
That's so bad for a car. It'd be so insulated. It would overheat.
Yeah, cowhide on your car. Where's the carbon fiber?
Leather? Yeah. This is not very aerodynamic.
The cow car driver, he essentially volunteers to get carjacked by Max because Max like hops up on it's like an overhang above the driver, but the driver's still kind of open air. So he's straddling the overhang and he like knocks him with either his fist or a blunt object. And then this dude is sitting like way down in it's like a Formula One car. It's like his body is in there.
Yeah.
And Max kind of just like assists him out of the car. The actor just kind of like got up out of the car. He's like, all right, you won. I give up.
I'm not doing this.
Yeah, no, Max, your eyes didn't deceive you. Max was in a cow car.
Yeah, it was, I'll be honest with you. It was a really hard sequence to follow. Like it was much more disjointed. Like it seemed like they were trying to compact that scene, that chase scene. Whereas in Road Warrior, it was drawn out. Like it was a 25-minute chase scene where they kind of showed you every step of the way, which may have been a little drawn out, but at least I could follow the entire chase scene. This one seemed really compact and it was like really disjointed. And I was like, wait, where's this guy? Where's this guy? Where's Max now?
There's that weird silent kid. I think his name's Screwy.
Yeah. With the painted face. He's a white kid in white face.
Yeah. Messed up, dude. I thought he was going to be a bigger role, but he kind of just plays a silent Bob character that is a little bit of an outcast in the Lost Boys crew, but he ends up hijacking his own car. So that guy's doing that. Max is in a cow car.
Yeah, I think his name is Screw Loose. His name was Screw Loose in the film.
But I do think they called him Screwy for short.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Because I needed subtitles on for this. There was so much weird terminology and sentences.
They had their own language half the time.
They're their own language, and there's like Australian slang.
They're like, it's jerkin time. It's jerkin time. I was like, what the is jerkin time?
Should I take off my belt? What's going on here?
Yeah.
My wife's going to hate that joke. Just to summarize the end of the final battle, Master he's the target here. He's the golden snitch. And Master's getting passed around like a football in this scene.
Yes.
It's because of his football-sized stature. He's getting handed off from Auntie, from Savannah, and then Max like intercepts it. Max strips Master from Auntie's hand, so it's a clean strip.
It's like whoa,
and then he literally has Master like as a football, and then jumps from train car to train car. Oh, there's also that guy holding the train cars together.
Yeah, this is there's
a guy that undoes the pin.
Fast and Furious before Fast and Furious.
And then apparently he's strong enough to hold two train cars together.
Yeah.
That guy's hella strong.
Needless to say, they kind of went over the top with this one when they really didn't need to.
But not in a good way.
Yeah, the practical nature of Road Warrior was thumbs up by this podcast.
Road Warrior was over the top in a great way. This was over the top in like almost an underwhelming way.
Like jump the shark kind of way. Like, okay, we get it.
Yeah. So this is when Max jumps with Master, cradling him like a football, and they go on the separate train cars, and the Mad Max train car is going ahead and the other one's losing steam. But they come up on this kid and he's like, "Stop. This is an ambush," or like, "You're surrounded."
It's a stick up.
Yeah, he says, "This is a stick up." I'm thinking, who's this kid? And I was like, oh, I think it's the kid from the beginning with the plane.
The pilot's kid, yeah.
And he sees the Bartertown convoy coming at him, and he says, "Oh, looks like we're all going to be dead." And he books it to his secret. There's like an abandoned car in the desert. The trunk is a secret door hatch to an underground
compartment. Yep.
home. So Max, Pig Killer, and the kids and Master, they all follow this kid down. Now, this is the part we were talking about with the gyro pilot.
This is so upsetting to me.
Bruce Spence, his character in this movie, he does see Max at Bartertown when he first rolls in. I wouldn't buy that the character of Jedediah would recognize Max, because he literally did a Grand Theft Camel on him, lickety split, didn't even see who his victim was. And Max was all robed up like a mystery character. So he sees Max in Bartertown, and so that's where I'm thinking, oh, it's the gyro captain and he's recognizing Max, but he's not saying hi. Or maybe he just maybe so much time has passed, it feels like a different lifetime ago, and Max has long hair. Who knows?
Maybe there's a backstory where Max wronged him. I don't know.
So at this point, Bruce Spence, Jedediah, an aerial pilot, he's laying in his bed, like reading a magazine or a newspaper, and Max runs in. He runs past him, stops, does a double take, comes back, points at Bruce Spence and says, "You." And I'm like, okay, cool. Here we go. He's going to say, "Hey, I know you from the last movie." No, he says, you have a plane.
You? Me? It's your lucky day.
It is?
Uh-huh. You got a plane.
I have?
So that's where it was super confusing to audiences and fans alike. I was like, is he the same character? Why don't they recognize each other? They pulled this fat ass mission only a few years ago. 4, if we're going by movie release years.
I would assume, yeah.
That's where a low confusion point hit for viewers of this movie.
So he says, "You have a plane. We got to get out of here." And the pilot says, "There's not enough runway. Like, I can't take off because the convoy from Bartertown's coming in too fast and I can't get up to speed." And Max goes ahead and is like, "You know what? I'm going to clear you a runway."
Everybody gets in this chody ass plane. And I'm thinking, there's no way all those people are in that plane.
Yeah.
Because he says, "I can't take off because we're too heavy." So just do it. Quick head count. There is the pilot. There's a little pilot, his son. There's Max, Savannah. There's Master. There's Pig Killer. And there's about 2 other kids. So we're looking at 8 people in this plane that's probably no bigger than 2 to 3 porta potties.
Yes.
Like the cockpit itself is room. There's only room for 1 fully grown adult in there. On the interior shot, they jam like 3 people in there at a time. But on the exterior, the cockpit is showcasing that only 1 person should be allowed in there. It is a tight fit, let alone you got pots and pans to like expend upon the runway to lose weight. And then Screwy rolls up and then he joins the plane. I was like, okay, this plane is like a clown car at this point, and there's no way they're all in there at the same time.
But they are. Well, luckily, Master doesn't take up a lot of space.
I was going to say that, but
hey,
you did.
What are you going to do? Max decides, okay, I'm going to stop this convoy, and then that's going to give you enough runway to take off with the kids and Master. So he jumps in a vehicle, and he just barrels towards the convoy, gets in a head-on collision with the lead car of the convoy. That stops the Bartertown convoy altogether. And the plane's allowed to take off, and the kids, Master, Jedediah, the pilot, they're all off. They're safe. The Bartertown convoy, obviously, because Max was just a single person in a car versus like 10 cars. They're not, but he did end up taking out like all of them somehow. I'm still not sure.
There was
how
like
that
4
happened.
cars that were mangled.
Yeah, but Max really only hit one of them.
Somehow he took out another 2.
He did a whole thing. So Max is laying there injured, obviously, because he just got into a head-on collision. The rest of the Bartertown crew walk up to him. Auntie walks up and is like,
Well, ain't we a pair, Raggedy Man? Goodbye, soldier.
"You're one crazy son of a gun." And I'm like, okay. And then just walks off.
Decide to leave him alone. So they're not vengeful. They're corrupt, but they're not vengeful.
They're going to go back and rebuild Bartertown, so...
Once again, it echoes Road Warrior, where they pull away and we're left on the last shot of Max on the moving shot of him just left alone in the desert with another job well done. Objective complete.
I don't know what the objective was at the end of the day, but yeah.
On to the next random side quest.
But the ending of the movie is Jedediah flying Master, Pig Killer, and the kids basically to the ruins of Sydney, Australia, and where they establish a small community with other wanderers. And so the whole end of the movie is like this hopefulness. Savannah ends up retelling the story that they almost word for word that they told at the Oasis about, we tell these stories to the grandchildren so that we can tell them to our grandchildren about the great heroes and whatever. And so they light up the city as a beacon for Max and other travelers. So it's basically left to believe that these kids are going to finally rebuild society the correct way.
See how well that goes.
And that's our end of Thunderdome.
Hey, do you have any nitpicks for Beyond Thunderdome? Nitpicks.
I kind of have two. One is they ended up killing Blaster with the crossbow. I just don't know why they didn't do that themselves. Like, why did they need Max?
Maybe just like a weak ass cover up. Because if they killed Blaster, then Master would be like, I'm not going to engineer the pig poop factory for you. Like, I'm out, bitch.
Well, they were going to torture him and do it anyway.
Where if Max killed him, then they would say like, oh no, I'm so sorry. Anyway, we got to keep the town going, Seemed
like a weak reason. My other issue was Master. I have in my notes that Master's a piece of shit. You should not have been sending this guy into Thunderdome and if you knew he was special needs and you manipulated him as your muscle to fight people and kill people, and it's pretty clear that Blaster had been in Thunderdome a few times before. This wasn't his first rodeo.
Well, he had like a winning record, so Master was probably like, cool, do your thing, Blaster. Maybe it makes him happy to kill people.
Yeah, but don't manipulate special needs people into doing your bidding. And then the whole time it's like, oh, we have to save him. Oh, he's part of the good guy crew. Fuck you, Master. It's a fucked up move.
So this guy's OG is a 77-year-old actor, but gotta say, acting pretty damn weak on the Blaster death scene. He just kept saying, no, 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 no,
no,
no, no. I was like, Master, give me something.
Give me a little emotionality.
Like Turk Majeers. All right?
Like, come on, I'm trying to feel for you.
It's tear jerking time. Like the kid said, it's jerking time.
It'd be jerking time, yeah.
This is the time to jerk. I want to be jerking all over these tears on this death scene, but you're just giving me no. So my nitpick is what we touched upon, that goddamn quicksand. It was way too quick. That wasn't quicksand.
That was just a hole in the desert.
It's funny because like quicksand is kind of slow. It should be called slow sand, but that was hella fast.
That was some intense sand.
Let's get into our talking points here. You look like you have a good one here. Why don't you bring this one up?
Yeah, so my biggest talking point, this movie is a complete break in style and aesthetic from the previous two. One of my notes was there no leather daddies, which was a staple of the previous two films. James, I know you loved the leather daddies in the previous two.
Yeah. Fifi, that guy was looking good.
Leathered out.
Wes was leather daddy and Lord Humongous.
Toe Cutter was leathered out.
Yeah. This one was missing the leather. It was a little bit, they still had like revealing outfits, but it didn't seem like it was a big thing. A lot of the side characters were kind of dressed up like sexy slaves. Like that guy who held the train carts together. He was just basically in a leather Speedo.
Yeah, but I'm just like in general, like the whole aesthetic and the cat, like it was just very, you could tell it was just very different from the previous two.
You know what it was? I feel like there wasn't a lot of sexual undertones.
Oh, I felt like there were zero.
And I think the thing that has to do with that is that, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe this one is actually rated PG-13.
That I do not know. Could be because we talked about this with Cruel about when the ratings came out. Now I don't know if it's the same
I think
for.
it was 1984 or 83. So
We talked
maybe
about it not being there with Cruel, and Cruel was 83. So yeah, it would have been there by 85. This also could have been, and speculation here on my part, these had previously just been Australia films, and this may have been the first, like, hey, we're trying to hit our major Western markets right now, so we have to maybe tone down. I don't know. It also was just very different. Again, we mentioned the lack of vehicles as a main driving, pardon the pun, driving point. A lot darker as far as, a lot of settings in caves and shaded area. Like, it just felt very different. A lot more dialogue, honestly. Like, I felt the last two had very minimal dialogue. This had a lot more dialogue, especially Tina Turner's character
So-
of Auntie had a lot to say.
this is what I was saying. It felt a little bit more like studio involvement, like watered down from the edge of Road Warrior and the OG Mad Max. Just like Tina Turner's there. There's a music video tie-in, and there's a lot more. It's a lot more words and dialogue, and maybe trying to explain stuff. I don't know, but I recall when we were watching Road Warrior and reviewing it, the reason why I liked it so much was that it played out like such a simple story, and there was so much show in that movie than there was explaining everything to me. Every action, every blocking directed move had a point. Every action with no words told a story. And I really like that about Road Warrior. So I can see what you're saying with this one being like really wordy. And I think this is a good time to bring up runtime.
Hour 46.
Mad Max OG, hour 33. Road Warrior, hour 35. This one, hour 46. So this one felt long and a little bit dull at some points. And I think it's because there wasn't a lot of vehicular warfare that we're used to.
One of George Miller's good friends, the producer previously, Byron Kennedy, and actually a co-owner of the production group, Kennedy Miller Productions. So Byron Kennedy, while scouting locations for Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome in a helicopter, died in 1983. And George Miller had mentioned in interviews, and it was just very open about, like, I was reluctant to even do this movie. So I'm wondering if maybe George Miller's heart wasn't in it. He didn't have that extra voice in his ear that had the same, stylistic integrity of 1 and 2. Because you could tell it was just different. Not always in a bad way, but it just didn't have the same atmosphere to it.
I did see in the credits that it was dedicated to Byron Kennedy.
I don't want to say he phoned it in. I don't want to accuse him of that, but it definitely feels like it.
It's tonally different, and it's apparent.
Yes. And I wonder if that's the reason for it.
I want to bring up something. The title, Beyond Thunderdome. The Thunderdome location plays such a small part in it.
It doesn't even need to be in the movie, honestly.
The reason why I loved Road Warrior so much was because I described it like a little vignette. And actually, after researching these movies, a lot of people, maybe it's a known thing, but they call these movies campfire stories.
Okay.
They're summaries of encounters with Max, and they're like a story that someone tells,
like little legends.
But the Road Warrior, it opened up with the narration, and we learned it was the Pharaoh Kid by the end of that movie. And he says, "My memories fade, but the only thing that remains is my memory of the Road Warrior." And it's all about Max and his influence on this entire compound, this entire company of people. Whereas this one is confusing because it says Beyond Thunderdome. So I'm thinking, okay, cool. I thought Thunderdome was going to be the name of the town, but it's literally just the cage fight arena.
Should have been called Beyond Bartertown.
Yeah.
It feels like every once in a while you'll run into one of these movies where they came up with the title because they're like, oh, that's a sick title, before they actually built out the plot of the movie. It feels like that a little bit. They're like, Beyond Thunderdome. Like, oh, that's sick. Like, we need to make that a part. Like, if the final fight had happened in Thunderdome, maybe I'd give it a little more love.
What if the final battle was in this like demolition derby known as Thunderdome? Like it wasn't a moving convoy. They were stuck in the arena. And then they could have brought back the 2 parties enter, 1 party leaves.
That would have been super sick.
Go Twisted Metal on that bitch.
Yeah, there's a lot of things they could have done. There were parts of this movie, tell me if you feel where I'm coming from. There were parts of this that almost felt like Escape from New York / Escape from Los Angeles-esque. Taking all the guns off at the beginning and, oh, you're a tough guy.
That is one I was going to make a correlation to the Escape from movies, was the weapons, and he waltzes into this town. He is the outlaw and he is the biggest, baddest person around.
All he needed was a Texas Mike O'Shea or a Fresno Bob story, and
let's not dream.
I can dream. So it felt like they got into the mid 80s and they were almost like, we have to make an 80s action hero out of Max. And that was never Max's character in the first 2 movies. He was just a guy who
echoes my studio statement where I think they just had a little bit of a voice in there. I have no idea if that's how it went down, but that watching this movie, that's certainly how it felt. It does feel like the victim of a trilogy that I usually see. Usually sometimes the third movie doesn't quite land, or it's not as good as the first or the second one, i.e. Back to the Future, i.e. Star Wars original trilogy.
It's hard not to make the characters into caricatures. Max is now such an established person, you like make him an over-the-top version of himself. I felt like that was that way for Max. I felt like the post-apocalyptic world with Thunderdome. And
it seemed like they were getting too cute and goofy in this one. Whereas Mad Max 1 was like weird and raw and edgy. Road Warrior was super stylized, action-packed, rated R, a lot of F-bombs, a lot of bloody violence in that one. This one seemed a little bit kind of kiddie, childish, and goofy.
Correct me if I'm wrong. This is the first time in Mad Max there were no boobies.
And just 1 F-bomb, I believe. No boobies.
Yeah, there was
sure.
still 1 F-bomb. Yeah, but no
Maybe
boobies.
there's boobies hidden somewhere, like a little Easter egg, but
a little hidden boobie.
We would have to dig for it. All right, so my last talking point, this is a big one. The Gyro Captain / Jedediah. Same person or not?
Yeah, let's talk about this.
I have a take.
If it's not, you can't make them the same actor.
I'm not saying, hey, let's get mad at the writers, the directors, the decision.
You're coming up with like a fan theory.
George Miller says they are not the same person. Do you have a rebuttal for that? I know I went through 2 different stages of how I felt.
I believe George Miller. I think that's a terrible decision, but
No behind the scenes stuff. Just explain why they're not the same person. Give me some evidence.
It's his relative or something. I don't know.
Okay.
But I don't think they're the same person.
I'll explain my take on it. I was like, no way, this is the same person for show. You're thinking from the last movie, Road Warrior. He went off. He's the leader of the Great Northern Tribe. That's his role now. He is upped his game, leveled up. He's a king. You're thinking, here's the argument that he's the same person. 1, he's literally the same exact looking person. He's a goofy, scrawny, very distinct looking guy. 2, he's a pilot, just like he was in the last movie. And 3, when you're thinking, hey, why didn't he recognize Max? It could have been a thing where maybe he just blocked that out of his memory. Maybe he left the Great Northern Tribe and he's like, maybe he failed miserably. It was like, maybe he was like the mayor of Icetown, Parks and Rec, Ben Wyatt. He had to book it out of that state and he just wanted to block that out of his memory. And then he just regressed into his old habits of piloting and thieving. But he got a kid out of it. He got a kid from the Northern Tribe. He like either abducted
so is that the feral
kid.
child?
No, I wouldn't say it's a feral. Well, no.
It couldn't be because he was the narrator from number 2.
Because he was the narrator, right.
So he abducted a child.
That would be a plot hole because then you would think the feral child would disclose that the Gyro Captain did not live happily ever after in the Great Northern Tribe.
But didn't the feral child at the end of number 2, at the end of Road Warrior, basically say like, after the leader passed, I became the leader? So I feel like the Gyro Captain should have...
You know what? He could have Machiavelli'd the situation.
I feel like we're given a lot of grace here.
I'm not saying this... No. Because this isn't my final thoughts on it.
Okay.
Because I have
this is where you're at.
One piece of physical evidence that proves that something else.
Okay.
So there's that whole theory. Entirely possible it's the same person. And same thing with Max. You know, Max seems like so hardened. It seems like he goes on these badass adventures all the time. So what's the whole movie to him? could just be a 5-minute memory to him.
Yep.
So that can explain why he didn't recognize the gyro captain. I do agree that he is a different person. And honestly, it could be the gyro captain's brother. Maybe the gyro captain is like the shitty brother.
Has a twin.
He has a literal twin, identical twin. And the gyro captain is a piece of shit who turned a corner, is the leader of the Northern Tribe, whereas his brother was also a pilot, just never really progressed. He's just kind of like a middle of the road guy. He's not really like completely evil. He's not completely good. He's just like, I'm just here. The physical evidence is that fool's teeth. Gyro Captain's teeth were fucked up. This guy's teeth are perfect. The Gyro Captain had effed up looking teeth, whereas Jedediah has flawless teeth.
Gotcha.
So I don't know how good the dentists are in a post-apocalyptic world, but that's where I call BS. He is a different person. We're calling it. Just play it.
Get the dental records.
Hit the bell. I think Just Play It's calling it that Gyro Captain and Jedediah are identical twins. Two different people.
Okay, but going behind the scenes, terrible choice to cast a same guy.
Super confusing.
Just not necessary. I don't know if you listened through the credits, but I kept them playing. I had them on in the background as it was going. And there's a soundtrack that was written by Tina Turner. And the song for the credits is We Don't Need Another Hero, in parentheses, Thunderdome. So there's a Thunderdome theme song written by Tina Turner.
Brother, this is exactly what I was saying in the beginning. I said they wanted a musical tie-in. They wanted to sell lunchboxes. The studios got involved. They wanted to make content based around Mad Max. They wanted to expand the franchise. They made a whole music video with Tina Turner. They said, Tina Turner, we're going to put you in this movie and you're going to make a theme song.
I hear you. I just don't, when you keep saying they, I don't know who they is, because this is Kennedy Miller Productions.
But Warner Brothers is the distribution company, and I believe
just internationally, yeah.
No, US too.
But the studio is Kennedy Miller Productions. I don't know who they would be. I don't know how much pull that Warner Bros had.
Well, I'm saying like they probably gave them outside influence. Like they don't necessarily have any power, but they probably made like a lot of notes and suggestions to Kennedy Miller to make this a successful movie. Why did these movies keep getting made? Because they kept making money. So they kept upping the budget.
Again, you keep saying they. I need to know who they are. Because I don't
them.
see...
It's studio. It's outside influences.
They don't want us to have a drop top. They don't want you to float in the water. They don't want me to buy my baby a brand new Range Rover autobiography with red guts. They don't want me to wear a bow tie.
All I'm saying is whenever there's a master, there's a blaster. All right? Someone's behind the scenes pulling the strings.
So George Miller's the master, and then they are the blaster. We're not sure who they are, but they are them, and they are the blaster. But it's a banger of the song in the credits.
Why don't I hit you with a sarcastic selling point to summarize this movie?
Please do.
This is Mad Max meets the Goonies. Halfway through, there's kids joining the mix. They do shenanigans to free master. And it's very kid-centric. It's a lot of kid energy when the gang of kids join.
Well, that's my sarcastic selling point. It's like the other two, but with a Peter Pan twist. And it's not even quite Peter Pan. It's almost more so like Hook.
It's Mad Max Hook.
Yeah, it's Hook Max.
Mad Hook.
Mad Hook, dog. That's my sarcastic selling point. Yeah.
That pretty much nails it.
Final review. Fight.
All right, James, what do you say we look at what the other guys are saying? The Rotten Tomatoes critics. The critics gave it an 81.
Dude, I'm shook here because the fans have it at a 49.
This
is ass backwards if you ask me. This is as reverse as those credits, dog. Like what? This seemed like it would have been way more for the crowd pleasing audience and not for the critics because Mad Max won.
Maybe the critics didn't like the cars and car chases and they're like, no, this is better.
Like we say, Rotten Tomatoes is just a good or bad ratio. It's just a good or bad percentage.
Again, I'm just surprised that even on that thumbs up, thumbs down, that we have an 81-49 split.
The minimum 65. So if 81 just say like 65, then that it just passes. That's why we don't like Rotten Tomatoes and we like Metacritic. Weighted average hit me.
The Metacritic critic score is a 71.
Meanwhile, the Meta fan score is a 6.2 out of 10. A little bit closer there.
Yeah, but critics over the fans.
Last but not least, IMDb. Let's say it on 3. 1, 2, 3. 6.2. Way to take a stance.
I'll tell you what, they always just end up right somewhere smack dab in the middle.
They're the people in the fantasy league that don't really try, and you get mad at them every season. You're like, I should kick them out, but every season you invite them back. That's IMDb. That's my feelings towards
They
IMDb.
never finish last. They're always somewhere in like the top 2/3. They just
fuck up the numbers because they're not trying.
Yeah.
Same thing with these ratings. So, but they're here and they're here to stay. Unfortunately,
they really are.
Nick, hit me with a laughable log line, followed by your popcorn points, followed by your final thoughts on this movie.
Max finds himself in another terrible situation, but succeeds with the help of the Lost Boys. I have something written down and I kind of want to change 6.4. So I'm really conflicted on this one because if I'm being 100% honest, I did sort of enjoy the style of this one for a good chunk of it, probably until they got to the Lost Boys section. Everything from there on was a little, it just didn't quite tickle my fancy. I liked the story again through the first half. I thought the whole Lost Boys scene, this movie didn't need to be an hour 46. The gyro captain thing is still throwing me for a loop. I'm still not a fan of that creative decision in any way, shape, or form. It's just so different than the other two. But I don't think it's necessarily in a bad way. But it does end up being a detriment to it because you're just drifting away from the core of the character. That it's hard. So this is my lowest rated Mad Max of this trilogy, and I feel comfortable with that because I just don't think it embodies the spirit of Mad Max the way we've seen it in the original and in Road Warrior.
My laughable log line. Mad Max gets his camel stolen by possibly an old acquaintance, we don't quite know. But because of this, he ends up rescuing a band of desert children, and then they help him extract a mastermind from the angry people of Tina Turner Town. 6.5 popcorn points.
Wow.
I'm right there with you, pal. This is also my lowest rated Mad Max rating. Shockingly below the original. The original, I'll probably never watch that again. That just had weird vibes to me. You know, old movies when they're not quite refined, especially that one that's super indie.
Yeah.
Indie movies. Like the editing was like jarring. I remember us talking about that. It's not a fun time. I gave the original Mad Max a 6.7. Road Warrior, I gave a 7.7. I loved that movie. That was high entertainment value. It was so different from the first one that it just went in the right direction in the correct way. They went over the top in the best way possible. Whereas this movie, I kind of will disagree with you a little bit. I don't think it's that different from Road Warrior. It's very different tonally. Like we said, it seems a little goofy and kid-centric halfway through, and the movie just feels completely different when we hit that halfway point. But the story beats and the setup are exactly the same. He wanders in, he gets his shit stolen, he's in a pinch, he needs to pull off a job for this community that he owes nothing to, but it'll work out for his benefit because of the situation he's in. And then we end on a convoy scene, and the aesthetic is still in the desert, might be a little bit more watered down leather and not sexy clothing, but it's not super different from the plot points of Road Warrior. That was our whole issue with the final battle. It was a copycat of the final battle from Road Warrior. It's a fine movie. It's watchable, but I don't think it's the strongest entry into the Mad Max franchise. It just barely makes, I'm right there with the Rotten Tomatoes guys. I'd be in that 80 percentile of just, it was all right. I liked it, I guess, but nothing crazy, nothing worthwhile. And I don't really think it's the best of Mad Max.
I'll agree with that. I will say what I find different from Road Warrior to this one is something we brought up with the kids. It's just Max's motivation in general really seems like he's just along for the ride in Thunderdome, in Beyond Thunderdome, as he had a very clear motivation for the gas and the oil in Road Warrior and getting all that done. But in this one, after, once the kids come into play, why didn't he go back? What's all of his motivation for? Okay, is it for the kids? You didn't show that in it. Like, I didn't get that sense until I saw a kid on his shoulders. This movie alone, standing alone, say you didn't make Mad Max 1 and you didn't make Mad Max Road Warrior, and you just put this out and the character's name was like Jeff Stone and Mel Gibson was Jeff Stone, and this is a standalone movie, I think it would be a lot better to me. Because I have these expectations for what Mad Max is as a character and as this world you've built. And it really didn't seem like it was, like, the continuity wasn't there from like 1 to 2 to 3 for me. If Thunderdome was just a standalone movie with a different character, I would have given it a higher score. I just have an expectation of the world they've built and the characters they've built and like the motivation for things happening in the world. That's my thought.
I think we're on two different roads that are leading to the same place.
Two road warriors getting to different destinations.
Which is Thunderdome. Thank you guys for tuning in. That is our review of Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome.
Don't leave yet.
Now, we usually drop a hint for what next week's episode will be featuring. But what do we got, Nick?
James, we have ourselves a wheel we have to spin.
Now, what is on the spinny wheel, Nick?
On this wheel is a long list of Disney Channel original movies. Movies from our childhood.
You're not saying that this is going to be an annual tradition, are you?
Why would I ever say that, James? Because it's true.
Well, hey, next week we got D23 coming up, and they probably need our help promoting their small-time event. It's Disney's big annual expo. We figured, hey, we've watched your original movies. We need to review them. Not all of them are on this wheel. This is going from Under Wraps all the way up to Cadet Kelly because I got tired of typing out all the movies.
And these movies really embody films that shaped our childhood on Disney Channel.
Yeah, we grew up with these. We got so hyped when we saw that these were coming out, when it said premiering only on Disney Channel 8, 7 Central, whatever the hell that meant. We were there at
I don't know if
8,
it'll
7
land
Central.
on it. If it does, it's just divine will. But when Luck of the Irish came out, I was so into it.
Peak. That is peak Disney Channel original movie experience right there.
So, James, what do you say we spin this wheel and we find out what we are going to be watching?
I am so excited, and I am ready for you to spin that wheel, baby.
Here we go. The spin is on. Hearts are racing.
Let's go.
It is impossible to know. Horse sense.
It's horses! A Lawrence Brothers classic right there. Do you remember this one?
I do not.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm not a big horse person.
No, me neither. And neither was Beyond Thunderdome because it died. But this movie is with Joey and Andrew Lawrence, who were all over Disney Channel.
Yes.
You definitely know their brother Matt Lawrence, who was Jack Hunter in Boy Meets World.
Absolutely.
I did leave out sequels in this wheel. Oddly enough, there is a sequel to this movie that's called Jumping Ship. That is a completely different movie from Horse Sense. It's like a island treasure, like thriller. But Horse Sense is kind of like your swapping places movie.
Okay.
So Joey Lawrence plays like a douchey Hollywood LA guy, and his cousin, who is played by Andrew Lawrence, lives in Montana on like a ranch.
Sounds about right.
They send Joey Lawrence's character to Montana to live on a ranch and kind of like toughen him up.
I can't wait to watch this and review it.
I'm shocked that you haven't seen this, but this is a classic Disney Channel original movie. There were a couple movies on here that I knew nothing about, and I'm happy that we didn't land on them, such as The Jenny Project or Ready to Run. But I know we were both really hoping for Brink. or Halloween Town?
Brink, Halloween Town, 13th
Double Team,
Year, Miracle
Motocross.
in Lane 2. I mean, just name them.
Rip
man.
Girls,
Yeah, that was a good one.
Quince, Phantom and the Megaplex, Mom's Got a Date with a Vampire,
Mom's Got a Date with Johnny Tsunami.
Johnny Tsunami. Yeah, there is a lot of bangers on this list. I'm just happy we didn't land on Ready to Run. We get a pretty middle of the road Horse Sense coming up next week. We will catch you then. Please remember to follow us on Instagram and YouTube at Just Play It Podcast, Twitter at Just Play It Pod. And remember, you're watching Disney Channel.
Keep it classy, corn dogs.
We don't need another hero.
Thunderdome.
Mel Gibson punched a kid.
Which might be in line for Mel Gibson as we know him now, but
Yeah.
you know.